Who is the Buddha? What did the Buddha have to express on contentment, on this amazing truth that the Buddha shared called Tendel? Buddha nature. Would Rinpoche be so kind as to share with us what we are to understand from the statement that all sentient beings possess the Buddha nature, in shunyata and in English emptiness? Is there a shortcut to nirvana? Kuzu Zampo, and a very good evening to all our viewers. This is your weekly dose of Buddhism. For those of you who are watching this program for the first time, what we do on this show is we discuss Buddhist truths in an effort to better comprehend the vast and timeless Buddha Dharma. Without further ado, the premise of the dialogue on this program is Buddhism, gross national happiness and education. Our guest speaker on this episode is esteemed Dr. Tho Havinh. Currently, Doctor is the program director at the Gross National Happiness Center in Bhutan. He is also the founder and chairman of Eurasia Foundation, a humanitarian NGO developing education programs for children and youth living with disabilities, as well as ecological projects in Vietnam. Previously, he served as the head of training, learning and development at the International Committee of the Red Cross in Geneva. He is a Buddhist teacher in the tradition of the Vietnamese Zen Buddhism. Dr. Tho Havinh has been a professor of education at several universities in Europe and Vietnam. He has published several books and many articles on topics including curative education, engaged spirituality, intercultural dialogue, adult education and humanitarian action. He holds a PhD in psychology and education from the University of Geneva. Before we begin, any opening remarks from Doctor?
Yes, as an opening remark, I would like to remind our viewers and our team here that today is Happiness Day. 3 years ago, the United Nations has declared the 20th of March to be the World Happiness Day. And that was actually due to the impact that gross national happiness had in the world community. So Happiness Day is a very special day, I believe, in Bhutan and for the rest of the world, where we are reminded that one of the most important goals in human life is not economic growth, not riches, not outer success, but truly inner happiness.
What an auspicious coincidence. My first question to Doctor, who is the Buddha?
To me, the Buddha can be seen in three different ways. First of all, it is obviously a historic figure, the great enlightened being who founded Buddhist tradition, sometimes before 5 BC or so in northern India. Secondly, I would say Buddha is like a universal principle of wisdom and compassion that is really transcending historic limitation. And thirdly, the Buddha is within ourselves as our own capacity of awakening, our own capacity of developing our wisdom, our compassion, our enlightened mind, or awakening mind, bodhicitta. So these are for me the three main aspects, I would say, of the Buddha.
For Doctor, what is the Dharma?
The Dharma is the way to live our life so that we bring happiness and well-being to ourselves and to others, that we avoid causing harm and creating suffering for ourselves or others. The Dharma is all the wisdom of the universe. It's a way to express the wisdom of our universe in such a way that is understandable for us human beings. So fundamentally, it is a path of practice. Yes. And in Buddhism, I believe, wisdom plays a big role, because it's not liberation through faith, but liberation through understanding. So the Dharma is what helps us gain this understanding.
A follow-up on this would be, Doctor spoke about the practice. When Doctor speaks about Dharma as practice, what are you speaking about?
I'm thinking and speaking about two different aspects of the practice. One aspect is formal practice, like practicing meditation, chanting, praying, rituals, and so forth. Formal practice, which of course is very important, because that's what trains our mind. Nice. But for me, even more importantly, is practice in daily life. Because what sense does it make if my practice is only when I'm sitting in front of my shrine in the morning, evening, or whenever, or in the temple for the auspicious day. And then in my daily life, with my family, in my organization, with my society, I'm not actually putting into practice what I'm chanting about or preaching about or reading about. So it's really, how do you have a harmony, an alignment between the concepts, the ideas, the wisdom, and then the way we actually conduct our daily lives.
Doctor is a teacher in the tradition of Vietnamese Zen Buddhism. What is Zen Buddhism and how is it similar or different from the kind of Buddhism that we have here in Bhutan?
Well, Zen Buddhism, as is currently known, that's actually a Japanese word, comes all the way back to the Buddha in himself.
Nice.
So that was one of the teaching that the Buddha gave, which was a silent teaching, teaching from heart to heart. Nice. And this tradition continued and moved from India to China through the great master Bodhidharma, who was the founder of the Chan tradition, which is the original name of the Chan, meaning actually meditation, right? So Zen is Japanese for Chan, Chan is Japanese for dhyana in Sanskrit, which means meditation. So it's a meditation school. It's the school that emphasizes the practice of meditation as the main practice of the school. It belongs to the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, so this we have in common with the Vajrayana tradition that is in Bhutan. Yes. And I've even heard scholars saying that Bodhidharma actually passed through Bhutan on his way to China. So I'm not sure about it, but some scholars think that it's the case. So it's earlier, of course, than Vajrayana Buddhism. Vajrayana Buddhism started with Guru Rinpoche in the 8th century, and Bodhidharma was, quite earlier. I would say that all our basic understanding and Dharma and teaching are the same, because we are both Vajrayana and Zen Buddhism are Mahayana Buddhism. So with the emphasis of serving all sentient beings, Bodhisattva ideal, Bodhicitta, all these things are in common. The practices themselves are a little bit different. Of course, they're also culturally different, because Zen Buddhism was developed in China, Japan, Vietnam, Korea, while Vajrayana Buddhism in the Himalayan region, so the cultural aspect is different. And some of the practices are a little bit different, but the ultimate goal is definitely the same. And I would say that Zen Buddhism is very similar to practices like Dzogchen or Mahamudra. So, experiencing directly the nature of the mind.
Yes, Doctor, one thing which came to mind while the doctor was speaking about Zen Buddhism and about the similarities is the fact that a thing that is personal to me as well, because with my show, what I'm trying to promote is what they call a non-sectarian movement, in a sense, Rime tradition. And I've had guests who argue the fact that we shouldn't really even